Welcome back to the Spindle and the Anvil. Today's goal is to actually dip tapers. So here we are back in the bowels of the basement and just sort of starting to get things ready to go. We got the wax going. Came down here around 9 o'clock and started the heat going, got the pot filled up. And it's been going for about 2.5 hours or so, but not quite ready. It looks ready. I'll show you what I mean. I'll grab my dipstick here. It looks ready, but if I could tag something from the bottom, poking around, I definitely feel something on the bottom. And if I can get it, I'm trying to focus on. You can see it's not quite ready. So that big lump down there, that's got to get melted. And the whole thing has got to be ready to go because that's going to cause problems making candles. Just took a temperature reading just a short while ago. We're at about 189, which is pretty high for beeswax. And once that's all melted down, then what I'll do is I'll bring down the temperature and let it go for a while to cool down, actually, because I find the ideal dipping temperature is between 155 and 165, and that's going to be the sweet spot that I'm going to be looking for. Unless I find that's too hot, then I will still bring it down even closer to like 155, 150. So, in the meantime, while that's going on, what I figured I'd do is I'd get some wicks cut and get the cradle set up ready to dip. So I'll get back in a minute or so and show you how that's done. Alright, and I'm back. So unfortunately I apologize for the camera angle. It's the best I can do with my setup, but I'll try to show how I go about making taper candles. So first thing I'll show you is you start off with this weird thing here. This is called, I call it a wick stick. And what it is a way for me to easily measure out multiple wicks so I can load up the sled and dip candles. So when you look at it, it's got a starting point up here where we tie off. And then starting at about 8 inches and going up and increasing in increments of 1 inch. You got other nails going out to as far as 20 inches. And what I'll do is I'll tie off a wick at one end and bring it down to whatever length I want, and then loop around. And so that one loop will give me a double wick, which is what we're doing. So we'll dip candles in pairs. So that will give me, along with the end of the wick, which is attached to the sled, which doesn't get tipped. What the part that does get tipped, a 13 inch or even a 12 inch wick, will give me about 9 to 10 inch candle. And then that rest of that wick is done for hanging, and then for display, and then it'll get trimmed when you light it. Okay, but that's the first thing I came up with, which was the wick stick, how to measure out wicks. For my candles, I am using, this is the 35 ply, yeah. So I'm using a 35 ply wick, which I have set up here. I don't know if you can get it going, just on a simple roller. And from here, so with this this thickness of wick, I found that thinner wicks, I also have 24 ply wick. It was just too thin. And so it affected the burn of the candle, even a regular taper. It would. I didn't like the way it burned. It was very drippy. It didn't allow the wax to burn efficiently. So I found a 35 ply did the job. So I'm going to start off with just a simple knot on one end. Tie it off to the starting post. As I trash the place, and I'll start winding. So I'm going to do a 12 inch tapers. That's 1 set, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the 6th one. I'll stop at 6 because I have 2 sleds, and each sled does 3 pairs of candles, which is good news. So I can work on up to 12 candles at a time. So wick sticks loaded up. So now all I need to do is cut off the wicks at this end. And put the wick stick away now. And I've got my wicks ready to go. So put those aside. So now, the sled. It's not, don't take this as any official name. It's what I came up with. I've watched YouTube clips of professional wax houses, and antique wax houses, and how they dip their candles, their tapers. And what I noticed was that they used to have these elaborate swing arm setups where they'd load up a rack of 50 candles, 50 wicks, and with a large vat of molten wax underneath it, they'd take the whole thing and just dip the candles all at once, which is a hell of a lot more efficient than doing candles one at a time. So, and all the waxes, because it was a consistent dip, all 50 of them, they all came out consistent, and it was I thought it was brilliant. It was nothing fancy, no fancy computers or anything like that. It was just mechanisms and linkages, and it just worked great. Now I don't have that elaborate a setup, but I did realize that the trick was really the where the wicks were attached. So the idea, when I saw that olive oil candle, I realized that that's not space for me to be able to dip half a dozen candles at a time, which is fine for a home setup. So I came up with this. So I called it the sled because it looks like it's got skis on it. And what it is basically is just a wooden frame with 6 screws where the wicks get hung from, and these parts are there so that when I'm dipping them, I can dip them as far as the top lip of the can. So again, I get consistent depths, consistent candles, not some too shallow, some too deep. And again, that's also a reason why I have to make sure that the wax is melted all the way to the bottom, so that all the dips can reach all the way down as far as they can go and put on a uniform layer of wax. Now, after the sleds, before that, I need to prepare the wicks, because as you can see, they don't dangle perfectly straight. They're curved because they've been on a roll, and I want straight candles. So the easiest way is to attach some sort of weight at the bottom. On a lot of home candle makers sites, I've seen people use things like washers, nuts from nuts and bolts sort of thing. So just some sort of metal weight to hang down. And when I first experimented with that, the washers worked fine, but all the candles swung around all over the place. Ended up, if I wasn't careful, candles would crash into each other and stick, and it damaged the consistency and the layers. So instead, what I decided was, instead of single washers, I decided to try something else, and I came up with these. Bring it up closer, so you can see it's just a bar. In this case, it was some copper bars that I had sitting around, and I cut them all the same way, and drilled 2 holes in them, big enough for the wicks. And I found that these weights kept each pair of candles a consistent distance apart, kept them parallel. Now, while they would swing back and forth, just by carefully dipping, I could control that, at least that motion. I didn't have 2 different, actually multiple motions that I had to worry about. I had to control. This time I just had to worry about motion going back and forth. So this was actually this was a breaking point. It was not breaking point. What struck me for the word. It was let's solve the problem that I was looking for. Right now, I find that I'm having trouble with words today. So I'll tie each end of a wick to the weight, and then I'll attach it onto the sled. So I'll show you how that works. All right, so I'll come up close so you can see. So, well, no, what I can do at this point is I can dip the end of the wick into some wax to sort of control any fuzzy bits, and it'll slide through the hole much easier. So, and nothing elaborate, because it doesn't need to be a super tight knot. It just needs a simple overhand knot to hold it in place, because once the layers start building, it's not going anywhere. And I really don't have to keep them on all the time. I just need to keep them on there for maybe between 5 to 10 dips until the candle has built up enough layers that it's already straight, and I think it's going to stay that way. So I can then pull out while the candles are still thin. I can trim off the weights, put them aside, and then when I'm all done, one of the last things I'll do is I'll take all the weights that I've cut off, and I'll go break off all the wax that built up on them, because it separates easily from the copper, from the metal, and just throw the bits back into the tank and remelt them. All right. So once I get that set up, as you can see, the weight makes them much straighter, like that. I can then take my sled, and then on the sled, one end gets hooked onto one screw, and one end gets hooked up onto the other screw, and you have your taper ready for, or your wick ready for dipping. And all you got to do is just sort of adjust it so that it's relatively straight. We're not dealing with high precision here, but basically you want that. And once you've got all three set up on there, all 6 wicks ready to go, you're ready to start dipping. So I'm going to go work on that right now, and I'll come back when I'm done, when those are ready, and we'll dip some candles. I'll grab right back. And we're back. So, got all of the wicks set up with their weights and hanging from the sleds. Got this one ready, and well, I can't really show it, so I'll just bring it up. We got the second sled ready to go, and so we're ready to dip. But first, we need to take a temperature check to see if we're at the right temperature. So, thermometer. Take a reading. We're at 188. Way too hot for dipping. So that means I need to bring down the heat a bit on the stove, and let the temperature come down to looking for that 155, 160 before we start dipping. So that means I need to wait. So it'll give me a chance to maybe grab some lunch, and then we'll come back and we'll take up where we left off. So back in a while, and we'll dip some candles. And we're back. So I've been waiting a while for the temperature to come down in the wax, because it was pretty hot as the tank was liquefying. So we'll just take a temperature reading, see where we're at. So do a quick read. So we're at 167.9, which is still a bit warmer than I'd like. But I figure because it's at that sort of just around okay temperature, we can start doing some dips. Maybe build up the first couple of coats to the point where we're ready to snip off the weights, and then our weights come down to maybe about 155. All right, so let's dip some candles. So go back to here. So grab. So sled's all ready to go. Make some last minute adjustments. Make sure everything is relatively straight. Yeah. So if I hadn't shown before, so show you that the wicks go around these three screws on either side that are left proud a bit so that they have a place where the wick can drape over and the heads just keep them sort of on there. So sled's ready to go, and the next step is pretty easy: straight down and straight up. So into the tank and up, and we get that nice consistent layer of wax. And you saw that the way the sled is set up, it allows it to go right down to the lip of the can, and all the candles have a consistent height. All right, so go down again and up, and we build up the candle layer by layer. Like that. And I can see someone's going to comment that, well, one of the weights are a little off, so you are right, they are off, but it won't be that big of a difference. Definitely be more careful in later dips, later candle setups. So at this point, we'll just go down and up, keep track of how many submersions you make. Now you see it's not building up very quickly. Let it dip a bit, so bring it up a little closer. So you see it's not building up very quickly, and one of the reasons is that the wax is still too hot. So the wax isn't getting a chance to build up and before it gets melted off again. So now, like I said, I could fix this with a water dip. I don't like to do water dips in that I found if you're not careful with the water dip that the wax layers don't blend together. So you end up with very distinctive layers, like onion layers in the candle, which doesn't affect the burn really. It's just that it's not really what I prefer. So this is slowly building, but again, it's still too hot. So I'm definitely going to wait for it to bring it down. But the thing is, we've got the wicks primed, ready to go. And also, there is enough wax on there now so that when we get to the right temperature, I can, if I want to, I can actually snip off the weights and just continue from there and start building candles. So I'll make some adjustments on the next sled, and we might as well prime this one as well. Down and up. That's one. Now there we caught something, wick from an old stub of a candle we threw in to recycle the wax. Pull that off. 2 up. Yeah, the coats are way too thin, which means that the wax is way too hot. 3. Oh, that looks like hair. Pull that off. 4. And 5. In there. All right. So we'll leave those to go to harden up, set up, and we'll let the wax cool down some more, and we'll come back to it and make more candles. Back in a bit. I'm back, and been a few minutes, been a little while, so I figured I'd take another temperature reading and see where we're sitting. So that brings us to 160.2, which it's not 155, but it is cooler. So I think we are good to go with some more dips. All right. So I'm gonna set up, grab the sled, and you see here the wicks have all set. Move over to the pot, and let's see if we start building more layers. All right, so down. You can already see the layers are coming on nicely, so that's a good temperature. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, so there's something very interesting going on here. I'll wait for this to drip a bit. If you look carefully, you can see that we're getting a good development of wax down here, but it tapers to being much thinner near the weights. What that tells me is that the bottom of the tank is still hotter than the topper portions. So we have that sort of, we're still getting that hot zone. So I think what we'll do is I'll give the wax a mix. Just sort of mix up those temperature zones. And I'm curious. We'll take another temperature reading, see if that changes anything. And the temperature has shot up to another 6 degrees by combining those hot zones and cold zones. So that's going to, we've got to keep that in mind to give the tank a mix every so often to make sure that we're having more consistent temperature zones across the whole depth of the tank. So let's try the second one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now with that mix-up, we are getting layers. The layers are much more consistent top to bottom, but it didn't grow as fast as the first one. Because the first one, the top half of the tank was 6 degrees cooler. So definitely getting to that, just the right sweet spot to build faster candles. I'm actually going to just go and dip the bottom parts of this candle, just sort of build them up a bit to make it more consistent all the way down. And you see this one's growing much faster. Much faster. Three, 4, 5. I generally, there's no rule that it has to be 5, but I generally find that I like going in groups of 5 as far as dips, and then letting it set, letting it rest. Especially when you have a long beard and a house full of animals, hairs are always something you got to watch out for. So 1, 2. That was actually really quick after, so we'll count that just as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, getting there. I am actually going to let this cool down a bit more to get it down to that 155 temperature, and then before I start building these bit candles to completion. So, we'll be back in a bit. And we're back again. So, let's take another temperature reading and see where we're at. 155.8. Pretty good. All right. So I think we are ready to dip. Adjust the heat a bit. All right. So Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Starting to build nicely. Put that over here. Drip. And the second one. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. There we go. At this point, we've got enough layers on the candles, and they're stiff enough that I can actually now go and snip off the weights and just dip them free hanging. So, I just want to do so with scissors. Go in, snip, and snip, and then that I'll just put aside, and when I'm ready to put on the next set of wicks, I'll just go and I'll break off all that wax and throw it back in the tank. So 1, 2, 3. Now, one thing I do need to do, I like to clean up the bottom of the wicks a bit, get rid of any crumbly bits, so it doesn't flare out with consecutive dips. And any obviously any irregularities at the bottom will just fill up with wax, and as we build the candle. So we'll switch spaces. There we go, and we'll trim these ones. 1, 2. Come on. It's a great thing about building candles is that they're self-repairing. So even if you mess up, dipping fixes all problems. Alright, so let's move this a little closer. Let's make candles. Alright. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Everything's all set. Put her over here to firm up. This is the reason why I went with at least making 2 sleds, is that I could dip one set, and then while they're hanging and solidifying, I can work on the next set. So it makes production a lot more efficient. I'm not sitting around waiting too long once all the waiting for candle temperature is all done. Now I'm going to have to watch the temperature of the wax pretty pretty carefully now, because now what's going to end up happening is, as I keep dipping more and more, it's going to cause the temperature to crash faster. So I'm going to have to eventually turn the heat back on to bring the temperature back up to 55 degrees. So at this point, rather than having you go through the process of watching me dip, more dip, I figure at this point we'll take a break. I'll finish up this set of candles, and you'll see what they look like when they're done. Back in a while. Welcome back. So while I was away, I set up some things. Sorry, try that again. I set up some things. One thing I did was, you can see here, I set up my smaller double boiler, and I've got in there right now some blocks of wax that are melting, and especially when I'm in a production run, I will keep this double boiler pot filled with melted wax, so that as my tank goes down, as I keep dipping more candles and using up wax, rather than throwing in cold wax and causing the temperature to crash, I can put in some, I'll use the wax from the double boiler, and put in liquid wax, and it allows me to not wait as long to get the temperature to the dipping temperature and continue dipping. So it's good for when I want to come down here and make, a few dozen sets of candles. So continue dipping, and these are the results. So these candles just came out of the tank. They are just about the right thickness for what I saw. I saw about a 15 millimeter candle, and so the last thing that needs to be done is I will trim off the bottoms so that they're flat, and then I'll hang them to cure while I set up the wicks for the next set. And that's how I make tapers. They're definitely not your commercial type of tapers that you see like at IKEA or anything like that. But there is a satisfaction that they are handmade, hand dipped. I make sure I put in quality products into my candles. It's all 100% beeswax, no paraffins, no other waxes in there, and I enjoy it a great deal. And I hope to pass on that pleasure to my customers. So that's it for tapers. Thanks for joining me. Hope you learned something. And if you have any comments about what we do, what we make, or anything along those lines, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And join us again next time. Don't know what it'll be. I'm not sure if we're going to take a break from candles and maybe do some jewelry, or maybe switch to making some container candles, which was a totally different process. And perhaps I'll make a video about that. This is the Spindle and Anvil. Hope you've enjoyed your time, and see you another time.